Hello and welcome to my retro watches. This video is a technical watch review for a watch that's been sent into the channel. On paper has got some quite good specifications and it's also a very affordable price. Now, do those two things marry? Who knows? We're going to find out in this video. So I'm going to cut to the bench. I'll show you the watch. So here we are on the bench. The brand is called Boderry. So let's see the watch that is in the box. And here it is. So design is subjective really. It is a skeletonized watch. I like a skeletonized watch personally. And in light of doing this review, I actually put my rotary skeletonized watch on today. This is something I've had for years. It's one of the first watches in my collection actually. But here we go. So it's quite busy. That's what people don't like about it. And sometimes you can't read the hands. However, I personally do still quite like the style of this. But then my tastes are so varied, I like just about every watch on the planet. So let's get this out in the daylight. I'll tell you about the specs and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do in this video. So here we are out in the daylight. And of course, the daylight holds no prisoners for watches like this. But first of all, skeleton watches. Now, I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but for me personally, I really do like them. The rotary I showed you earlier, of course, was a kind of gateway watch into my collection and possibly will have inspired me into the hobbyist watchmaking as well, because I got absolutely fascinated by looking at the movement and looking how it all works. And I've often said nowadays that sometimes these watches I repair and restore, that the movements are better looking than the actual dials. And, you know, it's sometimes a shame that what lurks behind the dial is so much more beautiful than the watch itself. So that is kind of why I like skeleton watches. But of course they do have some negatives, and that generally is that you can't read the time very well. Now on this Boderry, yes, it's still got that factor, but of course you've got those hour hands with the white markers on the end. In my view, really, I think if you made the hands a solid colour, so if you made these hands completely white, you could still skeletonize them in many respects, but by making them that contrasting tone to the rest of the movement and the dial, I think it would be much more legible. So I personally like the way they've skeletonized this watch. All the bridge work has been blacked out, which makes the parts behind them stand out a lot better. I can see the motion works there, so all the gold coloured wheels, which are transferring the power from the movement into the hands. I can quite clearly, of course, see the barrel. We can see the mainspring in the barrel. And knowing how all these parts interact from working on watches, it's always a pleasure to see, even at the front. Am I going to use this to tell the time? I don't really know, but aesthetically, it's very pleasing to look at. I actually like the fact that they've put their logo at the top there. It's very unassuming. And then the hour markers are quite pleasant white dots that do actually have lume as well. The case diameter on this one is 40 millimeters. It's 12 millimeters thick, sapphire crystal front and back. The case, of course, is stainless steel. That bezel does not move, though. It's completely static, but it's a brush finish. The little grooves that are cut into it are highly polished. So there's been a bit of work going on there. You've got a crown guard as well and quite a nice looking crown. All very good for this price point. Now this watch is called the Windmill, and of course I think you can see why it gets that name, and that is that sub-second dial down there at sort of 7 o'clock. Very unusual place to put it, but I actually quite like it there, to be honest with you. The Windmill gets its name, of course, from the 3-spoked hand that they've put on there, and they've tipped one of them in red, so at least you can use it to time things. And of course you've got the nice balance wheel spinning away there at 6 o'clock to keep you occupied as well. Now let's talk about the specs of this watch, because that of course is what caught my eye. Now it's powered by a Hangzhou 7570 automatic movement. Of course that is a Chinese movement. I don't know anything about it at all, but what caught me was the fact that it's got a 72-hour power reserve, and yet this thing is also a high beat movement, and it's beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It's also got 21 joules. So that, in my eyes, is quite a high spec watch. You've got a high beat movement, so it's going really fast, and then you've got a 72-hour power reserve. So clearly it needs a massive mainspring. Of course, that's what we can see at 12 on this watch. So what I'm planning to do is to basically prove these points. So I'm going to time it over 72 hours. So over every 24 hours, I'm going to put it on the timegrapher, and I'm going to show you whether it's degrading or not degrading and whether it can live up to those. Also, we'll put the watch on the microscope so we can have a little bit closer look at those inner workings and see the quality of those. So that's what we'll do next. So let's cut back to the bench and get onto the microscope. Okay, so here we are on the microscope on the dial side, and it's not the light that's playing tricks here. The parts are actually kind of that black colour, so I think they've been chemically black, some of these, to give it that dark finish. But we want to look at the finish in a bit more detail and see how well it is for the price point. Straight away, I'm liking the balance jewel. I can see the oil there, and on some watches I've had on this microscope recently, you can't see any oil anywhere, so that's pretty reassuring. And then, of course, if we go over here to the pallets, you can see them beating rather fast, of course, because this is the high beat movement. And there's absolute acres of shellac, has to be said, on those pallets to holding them in. I've not seen so much like that before, but must be a reason. So let's just move around a little bit, and we're looking to see if we can see any stray fibres. Of course, I am also looking through the glass, so I've got to be a bit careful that anything we see might actually be on top of the glass. So here's the hand, for instance, and that, to be honest with you, it doesn't look too bad, does it? Let's just see if I can get that a bit sharper. There we go. Yeah, I think again that's all right. If I'm comparing this to the tourbillon I did, then well, already this is speaking volumes to me. So here's this sub-second hand. It's a shame, really, that you put a high beat movement in, which obviously is nice to see because you're going to get a smoother tick. But then you put it in on a small hand like that, so you don't really see the benefits of it. And because it's so small and the way it is, it does blend in a little bit. But there we go. Let's just move around a bit more. And you know what? I mean, I think it looks all right, to be honest with you. The finishing on this, it's been linished or ground, I think, to give it that what we call linear brushing. So it's pretty uniform. I'm not seeing anything that's out of the ordinary. Let's just quickly go around the minute track there. Obviously, anything black is going to show up. If I put my finger on, now see, whatever that is, that's in there. So there is a little bit of crap, but of course we are at high magnification, and thus that'll show up anything that we probably couldn't see with our eyes. And again there, I think if I just wipe that with my finger, yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? If that's on the glass, I think it is on the glass. And ending on the barrel then. So we're going to wind that up in a moment and test it a bit further. So I'm just going to flip it straight over. We'll try and do the same thing through the case back. So I'm seeing something straight away there. Let's find something to point with. So here, what is that? Is that a hair or is that a scratch? Now, forgive me to going blurry, but we'll try and go deep in. And I think, without taking the case back off, that is a bit of fluff. I think that's a bit of a hair. I don't think that's a scratch. I think it's been pinched in by the screw. So there we go. There's our first and hopefully our only major thing that would annoy me. It is a shame that it is so dark. Could be masking anything, couldn't it? I do like the rotor on this. It's unique in its own design. And let's just try and move that out of the way. Sorry about that. We can see the bottom of the balance wheel there. So, you know, full price, $175. I think that's all right for what it is. The finish is looking pretty good, to be honest with you. And of course, you can find these in the sale all the time, and they're usually a lot less than the full price ticket that I'm referring to today. So before I put it on the timegrapher, just wanted to show you the case back actually. So the case itself has got these nice radial brushing or turned marks really. The case back is lovely. You've got this kind of shot blasted finish here. and then it's high polished on the edges, look. And that is just a lovely little touch, to be honest with you. I didn't expect to see that, and I really do like it. And I do like that Boderry gold rotor there as well. Sort of sets it off. It's completely different to anything else I've seen. Case finish on the sides, of course, high polished. The case shape is not that exquisite, I have to say that. But the finishing has been done very well inside these facets, especially highly polished, of course. So let's wind it up to maximum, take a reading on the timegrapher, and give it 24 hours. Okay, so that's the main spring completely wound. If I wind it now, it doesn't do anything. You just occasionally see it slip around the barrel as it should do on an automatic. So I'm confident now that that huge mainspring is wound. So let's get it on the timegrapher and take that first reading. So let's kick it off and see what readings we're going to get. So straight away you can hear that high beat kicking away, and figures are coming in straight away actually. So rate, well, let's see if it's going to drop or not. Amplitude's very good, beat error is exceptional, and there we go, the rate's coming down now as I thought it would. It didn't look that fast to me. So there is something going on with the amplitude, but I wonder whether that's the background noise inside that case perhaps for turn down the gain. But so far I'm actually quite impressed. That's looking very healthy to me, and the best beat error I've seen for one of these budget watches by a long shot. So I think what we'll do is I'll do a bit of a controlled experiment. I'm going to do 30 seconds dial up, 30 seconds dial down, 30 seconds crown up, 30 seconds crown down, and we'll take the readings as we go along. So let's start the 30 seconds of dial up now. And there's 30 seconds up, and we're getting that nice straight line, aren't we? Plus 12 seconds a day. So let's turn it to the dial down position. Just going to reset it, and we'll start that now. Okay, there's 30 seconds, and we're getting pretty much the same readings, aren't we? So good amplitude, good beat error, and the rate is still plus 10 to plus 12. So I'm going to change it now to crown down. And once again, I'll just reset it. Don't have to do this, but I just feel it's the right thing to do. And then we'll start it now. Okay, and there's the 30 seconds up, and we're still getting that nice constant rate. The beat error has changed to 0.3 milliseconds. Generally see this, to be honest with you, in crown positions. It's just the laws of gravity, I believe. So we'll turn it, he says, we'll turn it the other way. And then we'll do the same. Let's stop it again. And are we ready to start? I think we are, so go. Okay, and that's the 30 seconds up on this position as well. So that is our datum. So this is at full wind, maximum power, everything running good, and I've been really impressed with those readings. Undeniable. You know, people keep saying these budget watches are a load of rubbish, they don't know how to make watches, blah blah blah. Well, you know, that to me is looking good so far. So I'm going to call it a day for me now. I'll come back in 24 hours. We'll just leave the watch on the bench, and we'll give it another test in the same 4 positions, and we'll do that over the next 3 days, or until when it runs out of power, and see what happens. Right then, another day for me. It's literally 24 hours later, almost to the minute, and I'm not going to expect much deviation, if any, at this stage. That's what experience tells me. But let's start the timegrapher and see. We'll do the same thing, 30 seconds on each position. So here we go. And that's pretty much identical to what it was yesterday, so I'm not going to expect much changes through the positions. And we're coming up close now to 30 seconds in the dial up position. There we go. So no deviation there, really. I can't remember what the amplitude is. I should do, but I think it's pretty much the same. Okay, now then for dial down. Okay, there's 30 seconds, absolutely no deviation whatsoever, still running to it with that 10-second, 11-second rate. So change it to the next position. So we are crown down, and let's see what that's going to bring. And there we are, 30 seconds up on that one, and that's still running like it did yesterday, to be honest with you. Bit of beat error, seems to be just a little tiny bit of noise on that trace there, but I'm not alarmed by that just yet. So final position then, and that is crown up. Okay, and there's the 30 seconds up, and the trace is still looking fairly tidy. It's a little bit noisy here and there. The rate has increased a little bit, but it's still well within where it was yesterday, I believe. So let's rock on to 48 hours and see if there's any change there. So you'll see that in a second, of course. I'll be back here in another 24 hours. Well, here we go then. We're at 48 hours into this test, and the same procedure, 30 seconds at each position, and we'll see whether we've lost any accuracy or any amplitude. So here we go. And I think we can see now that it is starting to drop off. The rate is staying still roughly around the same, but the amplitude has definitely dropped down, and I would expect that, to be honest with you. You know, 48 hours have been around. I'll show you the mainspring perhaps in a moment as well to see how much it's uncurled, but that's why the amplitude is dropping. So, but either way, it's still pretty accurate. Excuse the noise, it always seems to scatter now a little bit when I'm talking. If I turn the gain down, that tends to clean it up a little bit. So we'll move it to the dial down. Okay, so dialed down, it's showing a little bit of more of a gain on the rate, which is quite interesting. And the amplitude is a little bit better. Again, I'd expect that. A dial down position, balances seem to be sitting in their optimal position, and that's why they tend to run a little bit better. So we are seeing a little bit of a drop off, but again, still not alarming at all. So crown down. So there we go, that's crown down, and we're seeing a remarkable difference now, aren't we? So the rate has dropped a heck of a lot. So we're at minus 14 seconds. Amplitude is still roughly what I saw on dial up, I think, from memory. But the trace, again, you know, the beat error is the same as it always been on the crown down. The trace is a bit more noisy, should we say. So it's definitely just starting to deteriorate. But we'll try the last one. Of course, that is crown up. And we'll have a fresh page. And the watch has moved. So crown up, we're back to a plus rate again. Amplitude certainly dropped, but still where they all have been roughly. The trace is getting a bit more scattery, isn't it? So definitely deterioration. I'm not really surprised. It hasn't moved from my bench at all. So equally, it's still going to be telling pretty reasonable time, and that's what you want if you're going to be leaving this for 3 days on your bedside table, for instance, before you wear it next. So lastly, you can just look at the mainspring there, and it is unwinding. You can see it's at the top there by the 12, but still fairly tight compared to what I would expect. Well, from that angle, maybe not. Anyway, the acid test will be another 4 hours on, because this says it's got a power reserve of 72 hours. So the big question is going to be answered for you in a few seconds, for me in 24 hours. Well, here we are. We've arrived at the 72-hour point, and is the watch still running? Well, I'm pleased to report it is. You can just about see it down here. And if you look at the mainspring at the top, that is pretty much almost uncoiled. And we are half an hour actually out of the full 72 hours. So let's do the usual then. Let's put it on the timegrapher and see how probably poor now the reading is going to be. So dial up, of course. And I'll set my autofocus, sorry about that. And there we go. So it is fading into dust now, as we can see. The trace is really, really poor. Weirdly, the amplitude is way up high there. But yeah, there's no power left in this. But it's still running. And it's still actually keeping to plus 12 seconds a day. So I am absolutely astonished by that, to be honest with you. Let's try the other positions. First of all, of course, the dial down. Let's see what it gives us for that. Certainly a less noisier trace, but still scattering all over the place, isn't it? You know, do I need to try the other two positions? I suppose I do for thoroughness of the video, but I think the 30-second rule on this one is not really worth doing. Look, the amplitude has now gone to 310, so it really doesn't know what's going on, does it? This is at the limit of the timegrapher. I don't think it can compute at all what it's hearing. So the most stressful position, the crown down, and yeah, just crazy. And the rate is, well, I don't think it's plus 35 a day. I think this is running slowly. It won't be running fast now. So I kind of predicted that. To be fair, though, it's still running, and I didn't think it would. I didn't think it was going to last. I'm going to try and get going the wrong way. Trying to do this and talk at the same time is not good. So yes, crown up just to complete it. And yes, well, now we're getting a minus rating, but no, it's all over the place, isn't it? There we go. Okay, well, kind of proved that it will run for 72 hours. So let's round this video up, shall we? So guys, that's kind of the end of the technical part of the review. So what do I think of it? Well, it's pleased me, to be honest with you. It's done exactly what it said it can do. It's lasted 72 hours and it's been pretty accurate. What I failed to mention throughout the whole video is it's a hacking movement, and I hacked it and I set it, and it's lost 15 seconds over the 3 days. And that I think it's probably been mainly maybe in the last few hours when it's been going a bit crazy at the end of the wine. So it is pretty accurate watch. To be honest, I want to test that a little bit further, certainly with the accuracy, because I'm now intrigued. You know, it's no frills. This watch is $175 at retail at the moment, which is around about 130 UK pounds for my money. And I've seen them for a lot cheaper than that because the Boderry website constantly seems to be having sales on. So, you know, for your money, it goes very far. You get something that doesn't look like anything else. The taste of this watch won't be for everybody, certainly that design, but I quite like it. But then I like the quirkiness of any watch. The skeletonized, again, is not everybody's cup of tea, but for those people who do like skeletonized watches, then perhaps this might be something you'd want to add to your collection. They've got lots of different versions of this, actually. They've got one with an antique loom, different colors. They've got a different model as well called the Urban, which has got, I think, the same movement, but it has actually got a proper second hand on that one. And they've also got a normal watch with a normal dial on it, and it's a micro rotor movement. I really want to see if I can get my hands on one of those. That would be an interesting one to see. To be honest, it'd be an interesting one to actually take apart, let's face it. So yes, I've been impressed. Would I buy one? I'm not too sure really. I've got so many watches as it is. It doesn't catch my eye enough for me to part with my money. But all the same, I think some of you out there might like it. It has got a few negatives. Of course, the blatantly obvious one is it's skeletonized and it's not for everybody. Another negative at the back here, at the lugs, just at the top of the lugs, I don't know if you can see that. I'll bring it up to the camera a bit there. They seem to be exceptionally sharp. No deburring has been done. Every other edge is fine, but there it's not, and that's a bit poor, to be honest with you. I will end up sanding those a little bit just for my own peace of mind. Last thing I want to do is slash my wrists wearing a watch. So there we go. That is the Boderry. Check them out. There'll be a link down below. Interesting just to look at their site really and see all the different things they've got. They're not trying to be something else. They are true to themselves. All their designs look pretty original to me, which is good news. So that is the end of this little review on that one. I've enjoyed taking it for a ride for 3 days. So there we go. So if you like this video, then please, of course, give it a thumbs up, because that is going to tell the algorithm that this video is good, and it's going to hopefully promote it to more people to come and tune in and hopefully subscribe to the channel. Again, leave comments below. I read every single one and I try to reply to as many as I can, of course. And I would be interested to hear your reviews. It always seems to be a bit of a split decision on things like this. So I'm thinking there's going to be some negative comments and hopefully lots of good comments as well. So don't forget, as well as always, to check out my Facebook group, Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. 10,000 members now from all over the world. I think we've got every country covered, actually. And loads of people in there all talking about watches, repairing watches. We've got professionals, we've got collectors, and we've just got people who are completely obsessed. So come and join in the fun on there. If you want to see some more behind the scenes stuff, then of course I've got my Instagram account, which is My Retro Watches. So you can tune in there, and I post as often as I can in there, just projects I'm working on or watches I'm wearing, that sort of thing. So there we go. Stay tuned. More videos coming very soon. I've got some interesting repairs to do, and I've got a few more reviews. One of them is going to be really, really interesting for those of you who either mod watches or repair watches. Trust me, that one's coming up in maybe 2 or 3 videos time. I've got to still figure out how to film it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. So last minute addition. You can see here the watch is now stopped at 8:15. When I filmed, it was 2:15. So it ran for an extra 6 hours, giving it a 78-hour power reserve. So that is pretty impressive for what is essentially a £130 watch.